Hi, I'm Caleb Giddings from Gun Nuts Media, and today we're wrapping up our series on the 4 rules of gun safety with rule number 4. As you know, we've been going through the 4 rules of gun safety. We've been looking at them with an interpretive mindset. We're not treating them like dogmatic rules, but rather as guidelines. We went through Rule 1, Rule 2, Rule 3, and now we're at the 4th and final rule, which is probably the easiest one to interpret. You've heard different ways of saying it. We're just going to go with a common one. Know your target and what's beyond it. The reason we have rule number 4 is pretty simple, and it involves how bullets work. They don't just stop when they hit stuff. Sometimes they go clean through whatever the thing it is that you are shooting at. Especially if you're shooting at a paper target, they're just going to keep going for a while. And rounds go a very long way. One of the more interesting things to me, having lived in Indiana for almost a decade, were their laws around what cartridges were legal to hunt deer with. So in Indiana, you can't use a .270 Winchester out of a rifle, for example, but you can use a .270 Winchester out of a 14-inch barreled TC Encore pistol. That's perfectly legal. Or you can use a 1-ounce 12-gauge deer slug out of a rifled shotgun barrel, and that's perfectly legal. And one of the justifications presented by this is that, and I'm not kidding, one of the justifications presented for this law is that the shotgun slug is somehow going to be less dangerous if you miss than the .270 round. And sure, it'll probably travel a shorter distance than the .270 Winchester round, but I'm pretty sure it's still going to go quite a bit of distance, and it's going to still carry a tremendous amount of energy if you miss that buck. But to get back to rule number 4, know your target and what's beyond it. A lot of people get caught up on the whole what's beyond it thing. They seem to think that they're going to shoot some mugger and the bullet's going to go right through him and kill little Susie Durkins on the other side of him. And obviously we don't want to kill little Susie Durkins. And as a result of that, they gloss over the whole know your target part of it. Know your target. That's actually the most important part of rule number 4. It's not the part about knowing what's beyond your target. It's actually, this rule is about target identification. You'll see stories in the news, not frequently, thankfully, but you will occasionally see stories in the news about homeowners shooting their daughter's teenage boyfriends as they sneak through the window. You'll see stories in the news about cops shooting undercover cops. You'll see you hear about military blue on blue fire. These are examples of not knowing your target. Target identification is critical. If you are going to fire your weapon, in this case my unloaded gun, if you are going to actually aim your weapon at something and you intend to shoot it, you sure as hell better know that that thing that you're going to shoot is something that needs a bullet in that situation, all right? We don't want to be the guy who puts a bullet into someone who doesn't, or something that doesn't need a round. So the point of rule number 4 isn't so much the backstop of your target, although that is important, and we're going to get to that in a minute, but it's identify your target. And it goes back to rule number 3 about not pointing your gun at something you don't want to destroy, okay? You must be able to positively identify your target before you start putting rounds on it. For the concealed carry shooter, or the person who's concerned about home defense, or even law enforcement and military, what this means is that if you're going to fire your weapon, you need to be sure that this thing that you're firing your weapon at needs a bullet. And this is why I get frustrated a lot of the time when people who are talking about concealed carry and home defense don't understand why it's important to have a flashlight or a weapon-mounted light. Now, we can argue semantics about whether or not weapon-mounted lights should be used for searching, but they can definitely be used for target identification, all right? I don't have a light on this gun. It doesn't have a rail. I kind of wish I did have a light on it, because if I pull this gun out in the middle of the night and someone's kicking down my front door, I want to, one, not only be able to hit what I'm aiming at, and the light helps me see it, but also I want to make sure that whoever's kicking down my front door is actually, a bad guy. I don't want it to be some drunk who's confused about what apartment he lives in and thinks that his girlfriend's in here when, she's actually 3 doors down the hall or something like that, which I've had happen and is not a great experience. I didn't shoot the guy, but it's not a great experience. Know your target. Really know your target. If you don't have a weapon mounted light on your concealed carry handgun, or at the very least on your home defense weapon, seriously consider getting one. If you don't carry a flashlight, consider carrying a flashlight. Being able to positively identify your target keeps us from getting into situations where we have bullets going into things that don't need bullets. We're going to close this video up real quick. We're going to get to the know your target, the what's beyond it portion of the know your target. And this is actually important. You need to know your backstop as well. If you're out and about and someone assaults you and you're going to take a shot, you need to be able to identify what's beyond them, because hey, you know what? You might miss, right? I'm a decent handgun shooter. I'm a A-class USPSA shooter, which makes me a decent handgun shooter. I'm not great, but I'm all right. I could miss. I acknowledge the possibility that in a life-threatening situation, I could miss what I'm aiming at. I don't want to be shooting randomly into a crowd. I don't want to be firing my weapon in a situation where misses are going to kill a bunch of innocent people. And I certainly don't want to be firing my weapon in an instance where, yeah, actually that's pretty much it, where misses are going to kill people. I don't worry about over-penetration. I really don't worry about that with modern defensive pistol cartridges. That's pretty low on my list of concerns. The missing, that I do worry about. And this applies to hunters as well, actually, especially to hunters. You're shooting at a deer at 300 yards. What's going to happen to that bullet if you miss? Where's it going to go? Your backdrop is important. It also applies if you're target shooting on a not gun range. So if you are in fortunate possession of a considerable volume of land and you can shoot your guns on this land, know where those bullets are going to go after they go through your target backer, because they could go at places you don't want them to go. The bottom line about rule number 4 is really its target identification. Know your target. What are you trying to shoot at? Is this something that needs a bullet? These aren't decisions that you can take a long time to make sometimes. Sometimes it's pretty obvious that this is something that needs a bullet, but other times it's not. If you don't have a weapon light on your gun, get one. If you don't have a flashlight that you carry, get one. If you don't know how to shoot a handgun and hold a flashlight at the same time, learn. It's very important to be able to ID your target, because you don't want to be that guy on the news who is saying, I thought it was a burglar, after he shoots his teenage daughter's boyfriend. I'm Caleb Giddings. Thanks for watching this video.